Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being here with us today. Good morning, Houston. How's everybody doing, folks? We had a last show. We had a few technical issues, so we missed a whole lot of your calls, etc. But I want to tell you guys, and especially one particular person I know. I hope you're listening early. Please call in early. Let me just tell you one thing here. We have 4 subjects fully covered, videos, everything. But of course, if you call in and change the subject, we will. But I want to let you know that it's a very full show unless you call in 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. I know there are some discussions that are overdue, some discussions that we need to finish as well. But in the house with us, the 2 greatest people in the world, we are talking about the one and only Howard Reynolds and Jack Van Bever. How are my peeps in the studio doing this morning?
We're still looking for those great people. We don't know where they are.
I'm listening to them right now.
Hey, Jack, let's hijack Egberto's show.
Not today.
Oh, okay. Well, what are your thoughts of wisdom today?
Okay. We have to find a new inner motivation to drive humanity forward besides the profit motive. Profit is actually holding humanity back. The grandfather at some point has to turn the reins over to the younger generation.
Yes,
nice.
I love it. The grandfather must turn it over to the next generation. And you know what? I have been trying to interview and talk to the younger generation and say, where do you want to take the baton? When will you take the baton? And you know what? Over the last few days, actually, you saw a young lady she's out of Massachusetts, but we were in Chicago when we did that interview last night. At around, I guess, 8:15 or so, I interviewed the director, a young lady, 34 years old, who is anti-abortion. But just listening to her and having the discussion that we had yesterday tells me that we'll be in good hands, because unlike some others, we could actually have the conversation where minds not necessarily got changed, but got modified into saying we want to do what's best for our society. So, I mean, I'm seeing good folks from all sides, the younger folks I'm talking about, on all sides, really trying to say, you know what, remembering the Rodney King notion there, can we all get along? 713-526-5738. Folks, remember, you can get this show on 90.1 FM, but you can also go to the Android store or the Apple store, download, tune in, and find KPFT. Listen to us on your phone, or go to kpft.org, and listen from our website. Or if you want to see the show, see the videos as you're instead of just listen to the videos, see them, see what we're talking about. Facebook.com/KPFT Houston, Facebook.com/KPFT Houston. Today I have my Trek shirt on. Remembering the days that I did all that cycling from Houston to Austin, etc. Man, we used to do all 80, 90 miles a day. And the first day of the MS-150, 100 miles. Anyway, you can also watch us on YouTube at politicsdoneright.tv, politicsdoneright.tv. Title of the show today, Moral Monday in North Carolina. These 3 progressive activists are making a big difference. So, Dr. Rodney Sadler, I forgot to put the Reverend in there. Reverend Dr. Rodney Sadler and Samantha Turner discusses the upcoming Moral Monday. These 3 progressive activists, Kamal Franklin, Analia Mejia, and Bruce Pollard, prove we can all engage politically. So what we'll do now is get started with the Dr. Sadler and Samantha Turner. So let me cue that up, and we will get busy right this minute. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being here with us today. Today, we are honored to have Samantha Turner. She's a campaign manager for the Poor People's Campaign, among many other illustrious organizations she chairs or serves under. And the illustrious Reverend Dr. Rodney Sadler is an associate professor of Bible and the director of the Center for Social Justice and Reconciliation at Union Presbyterian Seminary, among his myriad of other things. Thank you so kindly, guys, for being out here on Politics Done Right to give us this information about this event that we have every year and throughout the year. So anyhow, welcome aboard, Dr. Sadler. Tell us a little bit about exactly what this Moral Monday event is going to be about.
Well, I'd love to tell you a little bit about it, but because Samantha is busy, I want to get her to say as much as she can while she's transitioning here. The Moral Monday event in Charlotte this upcoming Monday is an opportunity to bring the Moral Monday message back home to the Charlotte community. And Sam, would you like to say something about it?
Sure. So I can tell you the history of it. Reverend Sadler actually can tell you the history of it better, but it started with the NAACP here in North Carolina when Reverend William Bishop Barber was the president of the NAACP. He started the Moral Monday event to protest legislation that was starting and hurting people and taking away their health care. And he actually the force that it became, Moral Mondays became on the legislature actually changed the vote, and the healthcare was not slashed. So Moral Monday has a long history. The last one in Charlotte was, and you can find that out at the poorpeoplescampaign.org. Please go there. There's some great information. There's a whole bunch on Moral Monday and the history and pictures. It's wonderful. I just don't want to miss my exit. I'm sorry. So, it's going to be wonderful. This event, we're going to have speakers from the clergy from, I think, 5 or 6 different denominations of Christianity, Judaism, Muslim faiths, and we will have theomusicology. We will have impacted speakers. I don't usually speak. I'm not the speaker, so we give impacted speakers the microphone so we can hear from them how the policies in this country and in the state impact them, and that's how we have to push the legislature. So Moral Mondays are not. They are not partisan. They're never partisan, but they are highly political.
Well, look, let me tell you, first of all, Samantha, we like everybody to be able to get out there and speak. I mean, especially those who are working so hard in the background as you are. So first of all, thank you very much. Let's go back to Dr. Sadler, Reverend Dr. Sadler.
Yes.
The Moral Monday started, yes, with healthcare, but it really, under the Poor People's Campaign, it really morphed into a hell of a lot more. And sorry for the wordiology, slipped. Again, it morphed into a whole lot more. And I think it is something that America needs to understand the reasoning behind why it had to morph.
Good. So actually, the Moral Monday movement began in 2013, August 29th, when William Barber and 16 of his good friends walked into the General Assembly building of North Carolina and said that we will not take what's going on. We will not take the legislation that's been poured out on the state from the American Legislative Exchange Council. At that point in time was the first time in more than 100 years that the General Assembly and governorship of the state of North Carolina had gone to the Republican Party. And this time, it wasn't just Republicans that were governing us. It was a group of extremists that were hell-bent on trying to do things to turn back the tide, to remove the advances that had come about in the state of North Carolina in things like healthcare, and things like education, and things like voting rights. And in essence, they were trying to do a systematic turning back the clock to the 1940s, the 1950s, if I can. They'd done things like they were trying to pass a scheme to put vouchers in the hands of people of North Carolina and undermine the public education system. They were trying to make sure that the Affordable Care Act that had just come through the Obama administration, that it failed in the state of North Carolina. They wanted to deny the right of North Carolinians to have access to health care. And the easiest way for them to do that was to deny Medicaid expansion. They're trying to work against the rights of workers and trying to turn back the tide on the ability to unionize in the state of North Carolina. They were working against access to voting rights. And literally, one of the most frustrating things was that we had made such significant advances in the state of North Carolina, in part led by the work of the North Carolina NAACP, that they had were trying to turn back early voting. They were trying to put in place voter ID laws. They were trying to gerrymander the state. In the aftermath, this is in the middle of our first Moral Monday campaign in 2013. In the aftermath of the decision that came out of the Supreme Court, Shelby versus Holder, they literally the day after in the state of North Carolina put in place a monster voter disenfranchisement act that would literally work with, as this Fourth Circuit Court said, surgical precision against the rights of African-American voters. They put in place this monster voter disenfranchisement bill that really did try to turn back the tide. So Moral Monday became an effort to stand against this. It was an effort to say, we need to push back against our legislature. We need to make sure that we remind them that they have a constitutional responsibility to care for all of the rights of all of the citizens of the state, and they couldn't pick and choose, and they could not take away the rights of those who are most vulnerable and most at risk. So Moral Monday was originally an opportunity to make all of these issues come to the forefront. What I love about Dr. Barber is that he said, this is a fusion moral movement. So we're not just fighting for healthcare. We're not just fighting for voting rights. We're not just fighting for education. We're fighting for all of it, because we don't just want a state where we got good education and poor healthcare, or good healthcare and poor voting rights, or good voting rights and poor abilities of people from outside of the nation to immigrate within it. We need victories in all of these areas. And in order to be successful, we need to work together. We need to come together, and we need to be a moral voice that bears witness together. So I think that's what the Moral Monday movement was at its inception, and what it still continues to be in the state of North Carolina and around the country.
And as I understand it now, Samantha, this is while this is coming back to Charlotte, North Carolina, right? Is it Charlotte?
Yes.
Coming back to Charlotte, North Carolina. This movement now is countrywide. How can they find out about Monday, what's going on, and all the resources that they can get to work with you on Monday?
Right now, the event is listed on the North Carolina Poor People's Campaign page website. It is PPC.
I'll find it and post it.
NC.org. PPC-NC.org. The event invitation is there. And otherwise, please go to the poorpeoplescampaign.org, sign up in your state. You will get emails from circles or groups in your area, and they will reach out to you.
Let me ask one other question. Is this going to be streamed as well for people who want to see it in real time?
Yes, it will. It will be streamed on that page. It's going to be streamed on our social media. So on Facebook and Twitter, and I believe Instagram. Mm-hmm. From the North Carolina Poor People's Campaign. Yes.
Now, let me say one thing that have always concerned me, in that I don't think this movement has gotten the amount of attention from our quote unquote mainstream media as some hate groups have gotten whenever they do something. You guys are actually doing something that is good throughout the country and not gotten the recognition you will. Not recognition, that's what we're talking about. Gotten the coverage that you deserve over on the mainstream media. Are you doing anything to mitigate that, other than, well, here you have independent media here will definitely be covering it. But are we doing anything to sort of shame these guys into doing what's right?
I think a number of things were being done from the beginning. From the very beginning, William Barber worked with people like Eric Preston to have their own individual media that was independent of all that was going on. They worked with a number of other people who were documentarians who were recording the materials that were going on to make sure that we always had our own ability to witness. But I mean, you're right. Literally from the first major Moral Monday events, we noticed that there weren't the kinds of media that should have been there to see the greatest movement in the South since the 1960s. There weren't the kinds of independent media that were there in other places. We were always able to bring out some people. We had some groups that were constantly there. There were some people that were there from Latino groups. There were people that were there from independent media groups, and even some groups, some from Spectrum News that were there from the beginning. But always there was a dearth of the kind of reporting that we'd like to see. In February of 2014, when we had the biggest movement in the state of North Carolina in the South since the 1960s with the HK on J, more than 100,000 people showed up. The media was barely present, was barely evident. And those that were there reported something like 50 to 60,000 people and did not record the actual number of people that were there. So I think there's always been this sense that the official media were trying to make sure that they downplayed what was actually going on. But the fact is that they could not do it. And because we had our own media sources, because we had our own people that were showing up and taking pictures and recording things, they could not keep a lid on what was going on. Even today, we need to make sure that we push this out there. That's why I'm so glad that Sam has gotten independent media sources, people that are coming out to make sure that the sounds of the people are being heard. We've got people like Brian Kasher, who have been there from the very beginning to make sure that people could hear what was going on, could see it streamed live on Facebook, could see it streamed live on other alternative media to make sure that the voices of the people would be heard.
Well, I'll be picking that up as well, Reverend. I tell you what, this is all to control the narrative. You see, the narrative of a fusion movement is dangerous because it is all people getting together. And when all people get together, it makes the plutocracy concerned, if you will. Anyhow, let's go ahead and close this down. We'll make sure and get all this information out. Give me a closer, Samantha.
Thank you so much for getting this out there. It is so important that we do get media to recognize what's happening. It is huge what is happening. We had an event last June in Washington, D.C. We took over Pennsylvania Avenue. We closed it down. We shut it down. We had over 200,000 people. It was an amazing event, and there was 2 minutes of coverage on the local news. Somebody doesn't want people to see this. Yes, thank you for getting it out.
You nailed it. But you nailed it, Samantha, but we're going to make sure people see it. Reverend?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Thank you.
I want to say, please take a look back at that event. Eric Preston and Andrea Preston and Fusion Films did a fine job of making sure that everything's documented. There were more than 250,000 people, I think, you had at that event in Washington last year. It was an amazing event. But this event, we hope, will be a great way of bringing it home. In essence, the reason we're doing a Moral Monday in Charlotte was because Dr. Barber, when we had our commemorative and reminder of Moral Monday a couple of months ago, reminded us that we need to take these messages back home. So this is an opportunity to come to Charlotte, North Carolina and say, the work of Moral Monday is still not done. The need to bear moral witness against the unjust legislation that's coming out of our General Assembly is not done. And we need to do this in Charlotte, North Carolina, in Wilmington, in Winston-Salem, in Asheville. We need to make sure that this message continues to resonate and that people continue to hear a moral voice. So that's what we're doing in Charlotte on the 24th of July. We're trying to make sure that we're amplifying this moral voice back home in Charlotte. And we hope that people will take this seriously wherever you are. So I was just at a Moral Monday in Tennessee a couple of months ago. I hope that in Texas, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in Los Angeles, California, that this moral message will continue to resonate and that people will continue to make sure that we hear the need for moral legislation coming from our general assemblies. And let's take this message back to Washington, D.C. The way the Poor People's Campaign has been doing, let's make sure we amplify this moral message so that our legislators know that we cannot continue to rule in favor of the wealthy, the rich, the elites. We need to make sure that the people's voice is heard and that common people's voices and needs and interests are represented in our state capitals and in our capital in Washington, D.C.
Could not be said any better. Reverend Dr. Rodney Sandler and Samantha Turner, thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Good to be with you today, Berto. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, folks. So Moral Monday is this Monday coming up, and do remember go to the poorpeoplescampaign.org site and sign up if you want to go ahead and get notified. But you'll have streaming. I'll try to stream it on some of our e-platforms as well. Folks, the telephone number is 713-526-5738, extension 2. I have another fairly long video to play as well. So if you want to call in to make a comment, I ask you to call in early so we don't run into what we've been running into a lot. All the calls piling up at the end and not being able to speak to you guys appropriately. 713-526-5738. If I don't get a call in 30 seconds, I'll go to the next video. 713-526-5738. Extension number 2 to put you on air right away. Extension number 2 to put you on air right away. 713-526-5738. When Dr. Sadler, Reverend Dr. Sadler talks about the media coverage, I remember just before the pandemic, or about a couple of years before the pandemic, I drove a bus. Not I drove the bus. We drove in a bus, several of us, including a couple of folks from KPFT. We drove to Washington, D.C. to culminate the march of Dr. Barber, who was marching, I think it was from Selma, Alabama, straight up to Washington, D.C. And we culminated by bringing a whole lot of folks, kids. We brought, not kids, but university students to Washington, D.C. And we finished the march from Virginia into Washington, D.C. on foot. And when I saw the media coverage, I couldn't believe how terrible it was. Because there we were marching with Senator Sanders and Congressman Lewis and quite a few other Congress folks. We're marching for this particular, I think it was for the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act not being taken by some of the southern states and some other things that we were actually marching about. There were over 100,000 of us going down, and in fact, eventually we got to Pennsylvania Avenue, and the coverage was horrendous. Then you go ahead and you give it to, you get about 20 or 30 Tea Partiers, and they give you a close shot and make it seem like it's a real movement. Folks, we got to do better. Tag, come on in.
Morning, Edberto.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing this morning?
Great, thank you. Yeah, I just was listening to your last
interview.
Interview, yes. And the one thing that jumped out at me was the fact they're very concerned about ALEC. And
yes.
I don't hear enough about ALEC nowadays and what they're actually doing to our laws and our government. So I think that could be a whole show by itself, you know.
Well, ALEC is doing what ALEC does best. They stay in the background. They write the laws, and then they ship the same laws from Congress, from state legislature to state legislature. What a lot of Americans don't understand is we concentrate, and yours truly can sometimes have that issue. We concentrate almost entirely on the federal government, meaning the Congress, the Senate, and the presidency, and to some extent the Supreme Court, not realizing how important the state legislature and state courts are. And what we get from the ALEC stands for American Legislative Exchange Council. that is a group of corporations that have gotten together and they write the laws. They give it to a congressional stooge or a legislative stooge, which is what I call those politicians undertake, and then they pass the laws. If you take a look at the laws that are passed in, let's say, North Carolina, Florida, Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, you'll notice that they have the same wordiology on it, same words being used. And the reason why, it is this group of corporations that have gotten together, they write the laws, they give it to politicians, and then they execute the laws. That's why it is imperative that we all stay engaged. And what we did in Chicago last week, watching all those different state organizations, and note what I said, state organizations that came together to fight much of this tag. And you say?
The ALEC was actually, just a little reading here, ALEC was actually started by the Koch brothers, of all people. And it's a right-wing organization, if that tells you anything about it. But the thing is one of the things is they say they're trying to give the American public more freedom. And the way they do that is by getting rid of federal laws. And so then each state has the ability to pass its own laws, which can vary greatly between state to state. And I think it's a problem because you don't know what you're going to run into when you go from one state to the next. And I think that's why I'm more about federal laws, which kind of unify all the states so that we know what we're getting into going from one state to another.
Right. Well, so, I tell you what ALEC does, though, Tag, is they try to create laws that benefit these business entities, corporate entities, and they try to make those laws homogeneous across states. That's why the letter of the law from ALEC usually look the same. I mean, even on whatever they do, they try to make it that these corps can operate the same, but it doesn't apply to you and me. You're correct in the part that when it comes to social issues, they have to be careful with what laws they pass in what states. So it is a mess that only we, the people, with our vote, as Howard would say, get off your butt and vote. Only we, the people, with our vote can actually solve that problem. Tag. Anything else before I go to the next video, Tag?
Yeah, I think it's just important that we know where the laws that we're following come from. And when we have ALEC passing laws, we've got to know that those are business, more than for us. It's more for business.
Absolutely. I've gone to so many conferences where
I'll let you go.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tag. As Tag would say, I've gone to many conferences where the first thing that is asked whenever we talk policy is, how will this affect business? I've never heard the first sentence being, how will this affect our people? How will this affect humanity? I am waiting for that I go to any conference and hear those words first. How will it affect people? It looks like some calls are coming in, so I will delay going to that video. I want to remind you, as those calls are taken, that for all of the topics that I was going to cover today, you can always go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. And if you go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, you'll see all the topics attached to a link to the different videos that we're going to play. I see the phones that are ringing, but it seems like they're going to be taken care of now. So keep on keeping on, my dear brothers and sisters. 713-526-5738 is how you reach us. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we've got Augie coming up here. So we're going to see Augie go through. He wants to come out to the watermelon dance tomorrow. So I told him, yes, come on out.
Absolutely. Let's talk about that after Augie to remind folks, Howard. Augie, come on in.
Hey, good morning, Berto.
How you doing, sir?
All right. You were talking about the marches and not media coverage. I took a part in a climate change march in New York City, and they were expecting, 100,000 or something like that. And it was more than doubled. And I didn't see much media coverage on that either. And I used to watch the morning NBC, CBS news shows from New York City. and they're talking about what's going on around the country. But while they were talking, there was this other march going right outside their windows. There was no coverage at all of what's happening outside their windows. And they're marching right past their building, the front door and all that. And there was no coverage of, and so nobody really knew unless they took part or somehow knew about it. Yeah. So another thing about use ALEC and these laws, I think one president tried to get CEOs and the union together to talk. Well, when the CEOs found out the union reps were going to be there at the table, all of them refused to come to the meeting because the union guys were going to be there. So, yeah. And another thing about the Alex writing laws, there was a Southern, I can't remember, a congressman, I believe, was being interviewed. He had passed, he was pushing some legislation that had his name on it. So he's being interviewed, and they asked him, okay, what's in this law? He says, well, I don't know. I just put my name on it. The corporation wrote it up for me, I guess gave him some money and put his name on it. But he didn't even know what the law that had his name on it was about. He couldn't explain it.
That is too often how things work, Augie. But anyway, Augie, anything else you have to say before I jump to Johnny?
Just a watermelon dance. Everybody likes watermelon, especially around this time. Come on out to Cottonwood on North Shepherd.
Great. I'll see you out there, buddy. Okay?
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Have a great one. Johnny, come on in.
Morning. What do ALEC and no labels have in common?
You tell me.
They're designed to short-circuit democracy and disempower people, and they're just as bad as Chris Christie and Donald Trump having a baby.
I cannot disagree with that statement in the least. I cannot disagree. ALEC, we've been fighting ALEC from its inception, Johnny. I worked with several organizations. Move to Amend, we fought ALEC. Coffee Party USA, we fought ALEC. Be the Government, we fought ALEC. It is amazing how the persistency of ALEC, because again, it's corporate funded and they are out there making laws. Go ahead, Johnny.
That's right. Smart ALEC is just that. It is a smart ALEC. It is a private for-profit corporation confection, just like no labels. It's not grassroots. It's astroturf. And it's anti-American, just like our electoral college system. Anything that gives the people voice, the Republicans are dead set against. Why? Because they're employees of the corporate industrial oligarchs who don't give a goddamn about you, me, or anybody else who has to work for a living. God help this country, and that's all I have to say.
Okay, Johnny, let me just make one slight modification to what you're saying. I really do not want, you're right, Republicans as a party, I'm talking about the leaders of the Republican Party, are completely owned by the corporatocracy, by our plutocracy. That is an absolute fact. But let's not discount that they also have their hands in our neoliberal Democrats as well. It's only the progressive folks that are there fighting the fight. And we have to get progressives more traction because the combination of a very small Republican Party and a substantial and a considerably small neoliberal portion of the Democratic Party is what does the most hurt on Americans. What we need are progressives and real Democrats doing their job, talking to the people, respecting the people, leaving nobody behind, and ceding nobody to a Republican Party or anything. I want folks out in rural America engaging people. I want folks in urban America engaging people. I want folks in ex-urb America engaging people. We leave nobody behind, because we need every single American. Anything else, Johnny, before I go to the next video?
Like a tiny modification to your modification.
Yes, sir.
I would tell you the same thing I tell Tom Hartman, to refrain from using words like neoliberal because it confuses people in spite of his excellent explanation. I would rather point out the difference between corporate Democrats or centrist Democrats like Pelosi, Schumer, Biden, Bill and Hillary Clinton, and Obama. That's the distinction. These people take corporate dark and pack money. That's why they don't challenge.
Johnny, your wordiology is better than mine. You're absolutely right. I should not. You're right. I mean, and I have to remember that I'm learning that there are certain words that we use to kind of short circuit things. In other words, if I say neoliberal, it takes care of everything that you just said. But I also need to be correct and to make sure that people understand. So you're absolutely right, Johnny. Anything else?
And when we use that language, we're actually doing the work of Frank Luntz, the wordsmith of the right wing. We're doing his job for him, and I hate doing his job.
Hey, Johnny, let me go to the video, but you're right, brother, all right?
Okay, adios. God help America.
Adios. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, folks, I want you guys to listen to this one. I'm only going to get to this video here because this one is a 16-minute as well. 15, but it's an important video by Ana Lilia Mejia, who is a co-director of the Center of Popular Democracy Action. I met her at Netroots. She's a listener of the show as well. I don't remember what state she's from, but check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side. We kind of a little bit late. I'm going to have to say, please introduce yourself. You are?
Well, my name is Ana Lilia Mejia.
Ana Lilia Mejia.
Co-executive director for the Center for Popular Democracy. How you doing?
I am doing just fine. I know that you guys are doing important work, but most importantly, you are centralized on 3 issues that actually affect many BIPOCs. And these 3 issues are housing, the environment, and I forget the third.
I mean, frankly, we work on issues that impact working class, working poor people across this country. So housing, access to healthcare, all the building blocks that allow us to thrive. And
wait a minute, I need to give, here we are. So
we just jumped right in.
So let's go ahead and start again. And we're live, by the way.
Okay, great. Well,
so
hey, y'all.
Yeah, Mademoiselle Mejia.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about who you represent and what you're doing.
Okay, so the Center for Popular Democracy is a network of base building, power building organizations across the country. It's 48 organizations in 38 states, in Puerto Rico, in DC. And our focus is the building blocks that allow communities to thrive. So you were saying affordable housing, access to healthcare, access to education, and more importantly, political power, governing power.
I love that.
What we're about is if you are expected to adhere to the rules of society, to the rules of our government, and you are not allowed to help shape them, then that's a phony deal.
Yeah, exactly. What's the point? Yeah.
Exactly. And when we talk about governing power, it is more than just showing up on election day and being, sheep on GOTV, how some candidates like to treat our communities, but rather we want to show up for the issues that matter for us on election day, and then we need those who we get elected to show up for us every other day.
After you've elected them.
Exactly. In fact, no, I would say we need them to show up on our issues during the campaign trail.
Actually, you're right about that, because too often they come, they think they have the vote, they leave, and they're never back.
Or they're afraid to talk about the issues that are keeping our families up at night. And you know what? If you're too scared to talk about racism, you're too scared to talk about sexism, you're too scared to talk about the systemic injustice that happens in this country, then maybe you are too scared to govern and you shouldn't get elected.
And you know what? And that is the issue. They always say, let's get through this election. Wait. We're coming to help you, but we need to make, we are always appeasing a particular sect.
Exactly.
We're appeasing a particular sect at your expense for something that never ultimately comes through.
Exactly.
So what is your group doing to let folks know that they're already empowered to do what they need to do?
So first and foremost, let me share with your audience that, there are different types of organizations.
Right.
Actually present here at Netroots. You have organizations that are perhaps service organizations.
Right.
They provide a service to members of the community. You have other organizations that perhaps are advocacy organizations.
Right.
They advocate on behalf of a community.
Right.
What we do is we build power with people. You don't need a strong leader. You
Right.
need the information
Right.
to be able to engage. So first and foremost, let's be clear.
Right.
We have a system of representative government. That means that when we turn out and participate,
Right.
people get elected, and when we don't, they don't.
Exactly, right?
First and foremost. Second, there's power beyond election day.
Right.
There are city council meetings, county meetings. There are people who are deciding right now
Right.
the trillions of dollars that are getting poured across
Right.
our country around IRA,
Yes.
and showing up in city council meetings, county meetings, state legislative
Yes.
meetings. That's how we're going to be able to win those resources into our community.
You have to show up.
You have to show up.
You got to show up.
But in order to show up well,
Right.
you need the information.
Right.
So our base building, power building organizations across the country. This is New Georgia Project.
Right.
This who got the first black senator
yes,
elected in
know,
Georgia.
right.
Or Lucha, who has been building the political power of communities of color in Arizona for some time and every day making greater traction. Or Detroit Action, a part of the magic that has happened in Michigan to flip those state legislative
Completely
districts.
blue.
Yes. So those organizations are available to us,
Right.
are a center in which we can engage and build our political power so that we have governing power in America.
I like that. First of all, I love your energy.
Oh, well,
and if you can throw that energy out there to la gente,
Bueno, vamos.
si vamos a hablar con la gente, tú sabes
Bueno,
que va
vamos a
a pasar
hablar.
eso. Let me
Okay.
tell you something. So here's
Yeah.
the deal. What about Minnesota? Were you guys participants in Minnesota as well?
So we have an affiliate called
Yeah.
Take Action Minnesota.
Were they involved? Because Minnesota got a one vote away from not being a state, and they got so much 400 years of
It's incredible. It is the power of when our communities
yes
are honestly our communities have been participating
Right.
from the beginning, even despite all the hurdles.
Right.
But it is when we act in unison. It is when we organize that
Right.
magical things happen. Here's the other thing I would say to your folks: why this moment matters in particular.
Right.
When we look at the history of this nation
Right.
and moments in which Black and brown people have gained governing power, let's say right after the Civil War
Yeah.
and Reconstruction,
And
when you have
Yeah.
over 2,000 Black men, once Black men are given the vote, over 2,000 Black men get elected into office.
not only federal
All
but
the-
state
yes,
as well. Yes. Yeah.
What do we get? Public education.
Right.
We get investments in our communities. We get bargaining power for farmers or for the formerly enslaved.
Yeah.
And how is that governing power met? It is met by resistance, by a clapback that takes shape in
Right.
3 key ways.
Yeah.
Violence,
Right.
systemic disenfranchisement,
Yes.
or machinations,
Yeah.
and a Supreme Court that rules against the people.
The undemocratic Supreme Court, because we know that the Supreme Court is the only part of our government that isn't a democracy.
So you know what I'm about to say, right?
Let me finish it.
Well, let's take a moment and consider where we're at right now. We have state section violence.
Right.
We have a Supreme Court that has been taken over.
Yes.
And that is actively complicit in systematically disenfranchising the black and brown people and our political power. And you see it over and over and over again. It's not just Reconstruction and now. Think about what happened after the Civil Rights Movement. The same thing. When our communities lift up their voice, act in unison, and work on behalf of our collective interests. And this isn't about black, brown, white.
Well, you know, what is funny is the following. When things go right for BIPOCs,
it goes right for everybody.
Because the people included there are those poor people, poor white folks in Appalachia and all, because nobody cares about them.
Say it twice. Say it twice. When we pay attention to folks on the margin, we uplift all communities. And here's the thing: this people who are on the margins are also the margin of victory.
You know, imagine that, right? Imagine that.
Who knew? If we only knew that.
The thing about it is that is what has to be taught, because those folks that are on the margin and I hate to say, but specifically like folks in Appalachia that continues to vote against your interests, and for those folks that are BIPOC as well, that allow themselves to be coerced, not into voting wrong, but simply not voting at all or not making the effort to vote. That is what has to be.
So part of what at least my perspective is that our communities, there's daily existence, when you are trying to keep body and soul together, when you are trying to uplift raise your family without a safety net, without the resources that we all know we need to thrive, as we said, those building blocks of power, then of course you don't have the space to critically analyze the information that's coming in, or and to add to that, you started to say we need that information. We need to teach that information. It is exactly the reason why there is this wholesale rejection of critical race theory,
education,
don't say gay.
Yes.
All of these things, it is a
banning books.
It is a two-pronged approach.
And if you've learned false history all your life, Cristobal Colón era buena persona. Christopher Columbus was a great guy. And AJ, Christopher Columbus was a great guy. And the fact of the matter is, anybody who said, well, let's put it into some perspective. We're not even telling the fool to bring you down completely. Let's just tell the story and you decide.
Honest. Let's be honest about Thomas Jefferson. George Washington. Our founding fathers.
Tell the story.
Who struggled with the cognitive dissonance of pushing for freedom and owning human beings.
Exactly.
And they chose to strike a deal to build a republic on the backs of black people. That happens.
And that somebody doesn't want that to be taught. Learn that we had our deficiencies and we lived and went past them. It's not all that difficult.
That's right.
And but the problem is this: the truth makes people, when they don't have the truth, they can feel superior.
Yes.
But if you know the truth, you realize, guess what? We're all just damn human beings.
That's right. That's right.
all we are.
That's
human beings, flawed as we come.
That is right. And we are, speaking of being human beings, it behooves human beings for us to figure this out in this moment, because we are not going to have a livable planet. We are not going to have an actual democracy. We are not going to survive what is coming to human beings on this planet right now, because the threat of food insecurity, water insecurity, unlivable planet will result in violence.
It is amazing how many fail to see it.
Yes.
It's amazing.
It behooves us to figure it out. It is the most, we talk about what is the most existential or the most critical fight that we must engage in. And I think it is, at this moment, it is educating and connecting and organizing across communities to be frank, we need to prioritize people over capital, over money.
Oh my God! Why are you going to open another line of discussion, young lady?
Let's do it.
What are you going to do?
we can land the plane and do it later.
Why are we going to talk about capital now? You know that you must watch my program.
I most certainly. Let me tell you something. What is amazing to me is that we have in this nation, we have an aversion. We like to reject some of us, some of the powerful, like to reject the idea of collective goods.
Thank you.
Right? And we denounce it as socialism, or we denounce it as un-American.
Right.
And we say capitalism is, unhindered will set us free. Well, first of all, capitalism left to its own devices sold people.
Yes.
Let's not forget. And the bottom line is that our humanity, I don't eat money.
Right.
I don't breathe money.
No.
My children will not thrive.
You can't eat it.
No, you cannot.
Yeah.
So if we are prioritizing, if we're allowing by our silence, by our lack of activism, or by not calling the question on elected officials who are very content to prioritize their fundraising to their constituents, then all we are doing is putting all of us in peril. History has told us that is what will happen. This movie, we have seen this movie before. We know how it ends. And it is the moment for us to act. And in the past, what got us out is organizing, and that is what is going to make it happen again. Ooh, I see we have royalty in the house.
We have royalty in the house. Well,
come on in. I think I'm going to
wait. Let's close. We're coming right now, Maurice. Let me tell you first of all, it has been my pleasure, Miss Mejia, to speak to you. And
awesome.
we have to do this again because very few people understand these concepts in the aggregate. They feel it.
Well, you're about to have fire come
I know I'm about to have fire. They feel it. But you know what? You bring it.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yep.
And we got to talk again because that's a very important subject and we need to move it forward. Okay?
All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. Anyway, let's go ahead and go to the lines. By the way, all the other videos that I was to show today, go to politicsandright.com/newsletter. You'll get all the other topics that was supposed to be on the show, but you guys own the show. Moses, come on in. Come on in, Moses. Come on in.
Morning, Alberto.
Buenos dias. How are you doing?
Buenos dias. ¿Cómo estás?
Bien, gracias, hermana. Talk to me.
Okay. When I look at this whole mess, like every other civilization, this world and this country is in shambles and is in the throes of decline. You look from one end of the earth to the other, and what do you see? You see leaders and rulers who are not elected, who are picked by a cabal of people who have snatched power from the hands of the people. And they rule by violence, and they rule by robbery, and they rule by thievery and crime. From the United States to every corner of the world. And there is no place clean. When you look at what is happening in Texas, you look at that kind of Pharaoh behavior in Texas with the governor, as it is alleged, commanding his henchmen to throw the children in the river like Pharaoh. And then you look at all of the efforts being made to take away the rights of the people. All of the stumbling blocks that are put in the way to destroy democracy, to destroy the environment, and to destroy knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. When you look at all of these feverish efforts, you wonder how can we get out of this pit?
Let me add, because we're going to have to shut down pretty soon, but I want to make a statement here as far as what you're saying. I understand absolutely everything that you're saying. I'd like you to remember one thing. All of this, the genesis of all of this is the individualistic nature of me, that the current economic system that rules the world is all about. I mean, most people, Moses, are good people. I repeat, most people are good people. But we've always allowed ourselves to be controlled by the psychopath. I do a program with a doctor, I don't remember his name right now, that I do several times a month, that talks about the gangster, the spirit of the gangster. But Moses, I want to jump to Brian real quickly because we had a discussion to finish yesterday. Let's continue our discussion as well on Monday. Come on in, Brian, real quick, because come on in. Brian, why do you wait till the end of the show to call?
Because I'm on my way to work.
Well, I mean, you can call from work. I mean, call from the car, brother, because it gives me 1 minute for you to make your comment. Go ahead.
Okay. What's the taxation rate for corporations in Finland?
I don't quite know what that is at all.
Right at personal accounts is like 28%. They have a sales tax of 25%.
Great. 18%. That's fine. I trust you. Why are you asking? What's the point in that, sir?
It's socialist country.
What? And your point?
What is our taxation rate? If you make like $1 million, it's 38%.
No. Our taxation rate is progressive, sir. The first X amount of dollars is not taxable. The next X.
I just said $1 million, right?
But that doesn't answer the question, sir. Saying $1 million does not accurately say the question. Of that $1 million, the first few $1,000 are taxed at one rate. The next set of thousands are taxed at another rate. Up to $1 million is what's taxed at 38 rate. So they lie to the way they explain taxes in this country.
No, they don't lie. If you make $12,000, you don't pay zero in tax. You pay zero in tax.
If you make $12,000, you don't pay zero. If you make $1 million, your first $12,000, you also don't pay any taxes.
No. That is incorrect. I don't know where you got this information.
Sir, that's not sir. We have a progressive tax rate. Hold on, sir, please, my friend. Hold on, sir, please. Let's always have an intelligent conversation. This is not up for debate. Go to the tax code and you can read it right there. I am not saying something that is false. If you make $1 million, your first $12,000 is tax free, even if you make $1 million. That's a fact. But I got to go. Call me early on Monday. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.